Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Living on the Verge. It's me, Virginia, and this is another Friday style episode where I just kind of talk about life lately, and we'll have a Travel on the Verge segment, a Winos on the Verge segment. So thanks for joining me. I cannot believe that we are in the thick of summer. People are traveling. I can tell everywhere I go, there are much larger crowds because everyone is, has their kids with them. And it's been a really warm week here in Southern California. I don't know about where you are, but summer came on with a vengeance. And, I think that this week I just kind of want to talk about how things have been around here lately. Life on the Verge has been surprisingly quiet lately. And I realize I kind of like it. So we've been cooking at home a lot more. And you guys, what a financial windfall. I had Butcher Box, which I've talked to you about, and I have this Costco stock up routine that I've had for years. And do you know that I haven't gotten anything other than produce from the grocery store in over a month? Menu planning and grocery shopping in my freezer and fridge and pantry has been really fun in kind of a chopped kitchen kind of way, and also weirdly satisfying because I know I'm using things I've already spent money on. And instead of eating out and spending 40 plus a meal, and then I don't feel well from all the things they use in their food and I don't use in my cooking. And on top of it, the scale moves in the wrong direction. So yeah, no, I'm actually really quite proud of this change. And I love to cook, so it's win-win. In fact, the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of playing this little game with myself where I see how little I can buy at the grocery store each week. And the bonus is I'm really eating quite healthy. But my thing is, you guys, I can't sacrifice variety and flavors just to drop a couple of pounds. And I'm not going to. And that is why this is really working for me, because it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in, what I will do. Lately, I've been having protein shakes in the morning because it's important for me to get my protein in. But let me tell you what a typical day over the last couple of weeks looks like for me as far as food. I'll have a protein shake that consists of coconut water, really good quality protein. I'll throw in a handful of raspberries, some flaxseed, a couple of chia seeds, maybe a little dollop of Greek yogurt. Sometimes I skip that. This week I've been adding a tablespoon of crushed pineapple and some ice, and I get the NutriBullet to do its little number, and it's quite satisfying. And what I like about it is I'm not someone who likes a big full breakfast every day. So it's enough to break my fast and get my protein on board without feeling like I had to sit down and eat a big old meal. And then it seems that lunchtime is also part of, the chopped adventure that I'm having lately, because this week, for example, on Sunday, we had steaks and baked potatoes for Father's Day for dinner. And then on Monday, I had at least 4 ounces of a beautiful ribeye left over. So I cut it really thin and I made myself a beautiful salad that had red onion and grape tomatoes and some mozzarella cheese balls and just any little fun, fresh produce that I found in the fridge that I was trying to kind of use up. And I threw that all together with a little dressing I made from the oil from the cheese balls with a little bit of red wine vinegar and some spices. Tossed that all up with my salad and topped it off with the leftover, still pretty medium rare sliced ribeye steak. Delicious. Oh yeah, and I threw in a couple of hard-boiled eggs for extra protein. And I was so full that when it came time to have my crispy chicken thighs for dinner, I only had them because I kind of needed the protein intake, not because I was hungry, but it made it so nice. I just did crispy oven fried chicken thighs with basic seasonings. I was exhausted. I did not want to start chopping and doing any of those kinds of things, so I kept it really simple. And I just sautéed the contents of a bag of spinach that I had in the fridge with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and boom, that was dinner. And it was so good. So that's typically what a day looks like. Sometimes I will finish off with a little bit of fruit or a little square of chocolate, but I didn't buy any chocolate this last week, mainly because I'm playing the let's see how little I can buy. And I still had some fruit left over, so I decided I would make that my little sweet treat for the week. But you guys, it's really working out. And in the finance part of life, what a difference a couple of months makes. I remember sitting here telling you guys how overwhelmed I was by how much I needed to find out things about the finances and the budgets. And I made jokes about how I couldn't see my desk and just so many different things that are all no longer true. I've been checking my receipts and staying on top of the budget instead of avoiding it. And let's face it, I have a really great system. It's efficient. I can pretty much keep myself on track from anywhere in the world, as long as I have my phone with me. And I sit at my desk maybe 15, 20 minutes a week. And I open the mail, I sort through the junk, and right away I'm on top of all of it because it's as simple as refreshing my desktop and confirming that I entered all of the receipts from things that I spent. It's a really efficient system, but if you don't use the system, it won't get done. And then suddenly you have a whole afternoon of office work. Well, I have put that to bed, and I am proud to report that I am very much in control of keeping things current with regards to finances. So that's another win for this week. And I almost started my pantry closet reset, and I have this closet where I keep all of the kind of overstock that doesn't fit in my kitchen pantry. And there's quite a few things in there. There's, dishes and mason jars and cookbooks and aprons and tablecloths and oils and other containers of overstock. And because I come in and out of there frequently, especially when I'm getting ready for an event, it has a tendency to get a little out of control. And as it turns out, there have been a handful of events that I've been going in and out of the pantry and not putting things back where they belong. So before you know it, at one point recently, I looked in there and I couldn't even get to the back where a lot of the things were because there were so many things that were out of place that it was kind of like I have to start over with this thing. And so I believe I shared with you guys that we did a purge of my husband's closet. And if we didn't, let me know, because that's completely different than purging a female's closet. I'm just saying. Anyway, I don't want to digress, but what I came up with as a result of this purge was this shoe rack that had been just kind of sitting there, and it was used to kind of just toss things on or lay folded clothes on or whatever. And it kind of was a nuisance. So I grabbed it and took it out of the guest room and I put it right by the front door. My idea was if I didn't use it in the next week, I was going to get rid of it. And that was that. Well, I kept passing by and seeing it. And I realized, you know what? I really think I could put this thing to use in the pantry closet. But I think it took me a couple of days of walking back and forth by the closet to realize that I wasn't going to take another entire day of my life pulling everything out of that closet and putting everything back in when essentially I knew what was in there. It just needed organization. And so guess what happened? I was so proud of myself. I realized I only needed about 30 minutes. I stopped trying to make every project into a complete overhaul. And I realized that if I just took about 10 minutes to clear the walkway that was preventing me from getting to the back, then I can put things back where they belong. And bonus, I could use this shoe rack to put certain things that I reach for a lot, paper plates, paper towels, all of those things could be nicely stacked and organized in this little shoe rack. And now bonus, I have another organizational thing without having to spend any money. And I didn't have to throw out a shoe rack that I had already spent money on at one time. So for me, this was a lesson in self-control. Not everything needs to become a humongous project in order to give you a sense of calm and order and satisfaction. And I achieved that with 30 minutes. And honestly, I'm really loving the new format of the pantry. It's easy to get to things. I am able to see my things, and I'm using them more frequently. So another win. Okay. You guys, for me, the biggest change with regards to my health and wellness isn't the weight, although I'll talk to you about that a little bit today too. But it's more that I'm no longer negotiating with myself every morning. I get up, I roll around, I think about what I'm going to do for the day, but I get up, I make my bed, I get dressed, shoes and socks and all, and I go. And I think it gives me a little boost that I don't otherwise get. Not like tons of energy and all of the, the things that people talk about when you start working out. Heck, I was sore, and every time I increase my weights, I realize that I get sore again. But this week, what I realized is that I've been consistent enough that my reps are up and my number of sets are up and the amount of weight that I'm lifting is up. And that could only happen through consistency. And the other discovery, which is a total aside, but still noteworthy, is it turns out I have a lot of workout clothes. This week I wasn't as busy, but last week I was pretty busy and I didn't get to my laundry. I was able to get the house laundry done, but I didn't do my own personal laundry. And I realized that I had plenty of workout clothes to see me through 2 weeks. And I just thought that was kind of an interesting aside. For some reason, I never knew I had as many workout clothes as I actually own. And don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying it. I have some pretty cute little outfits that I've been wearing, and it makes it fun to get dressed in the morning. Well, you guys, another struggle with me is trying to get protein in early. But I've been working on that, and I've been getting pretty consistent. Although what I've realized is I did all of this research about what is the best time of day, how many grams of protein, what is the best protein to be able to retain muscle mass. And in my case, I'm always working on my bone density as well. I had schedules and times, and I would eat and then feel disappointed when I didn't meet all of these parameters that I had set out for myself. And it didn't matter if I tried as hard as possible, I would still fall short. And then I realized, stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Just get up, go to the gym, come back, insert protein into body. And stop worrying about what time that is. It's happening at 9:30 some days, at 11 a.m. some days. Heck, one day earlier this week, it wasn't until noon. But I'm still getting the protein. And what I realized is I didn't need to have all of these different rules in place. I just need to do it. So here's the weight news. I am down 5 of the 8 pounds that I had gained. And it didn't take me very long to do it. What I'm noticing is if I just stay consistent, I am feeling better. What I am noticing is it's not always easy to stay consistent. What I'm noticing is it's so much easier when I eat at home. What I'm noticing is it's also easy to eat out and make better choices. What I'm noticing is the closer I get to my birthday, the more likely I am to make my goal. And that's fantastic. It makes me feel good. It gives me momentum to keep on going. And you guys, it hasn't been a linear 5 pounds. I've gone up and down and up and down. And one day I'd be like, oh, I'm almost at the 5 pound mark. And then I would not. And that happened for about a week. But I stopped obsessing. And even though I'm one of those who I find it mentally comforting to jump on the scale in the morning, I don't do it every single day. And when it doesn't read in my favor, I don't obsess. I just make a mental note and move on. But at the end of the day, consistency and not obsessing over all the plans and the parameters and the schedules and the research has led me down the right path. And it's even had me enjoying my hot tub regularly. Because I am being faithful to my exercise routine, well, my body, I said a little while ago, has been getting sore off and on. And as a result, it leads me to just want to have a nice soak in the spa. And so I've been doing that, even though the weather's been kind of warm. And I do find it very relaxing, very centering, and very therapeutic. If you have a hot tub, don't hesitate to use it during the summer. And if you don't overlook the value of a nice soak in your bathtub every now and then. It can be reinvigorating, and I think everybody needs to do it once in a while. And in all of this, I think my biggest realization is that because it's been a quiet week, it's allowed me to remember how much I actually enjoy spending time by myself. It's all regular stuff, right? Regular life stuff, cooking, cleaning, exercising, and yet the fact that things are under control mean I can feel accomplished and relaxed and content. And you guys, that is a big difference from the girl that was on this podcast last summer. Moving on to travel on the Virg. In our last segment, I talked just a little bit about Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, and today I want to talk a little bit more about it because I really think that it merits its own little segment. It was a couple of days before boarding our cruise, and my first takeaway when we got off was this adorable little shop in the airport, and it was all dedicated to Puerto Rican attire and gifts, and it was really cute, but it almost felt like I was in another country. And after baggage claim, I noticed that there were a lot of people standing with signs, and you see this in airports, but it seemed to be a lot more than normal. And I realized that it was taxi drivers. And here's a hot tip for you guys. We caught a taxi, which was a flat rate. Make sure you negotiate this first and do it before you get in the taxi. But I checked just to compare, and the rates were actually less expensive than Uber or Lyft at the time we were going to be needing it, with no wait. And they're right there when you exit the baggage area. And if you're really nice, they even help you with your bags. So we get in the taxi, and like I said, you feel like you're in another country, but then the taxi driver tells you that there's a Costco and a Sam's down the street, which I found a little interesting. Cool, but interesting. And then I told you that we stayed across the street from the governor's mansion. Well, I also told you that we came to find on the way to Old Town that the opinion of the residents of their new female governor was mixed. And there's a reason behind why the female governor is getting this mixed reception. The frustrations are heavily tied to the ongoing infrastructure and cost of living crises that Puerto Rico in general is struggling with. And even though she was elected in 2024 amidst all of these promises, apparently they're not coming to fruition, and the locals are incredibly frustrated. And as such, there are large organized groups that will protest, etc. And so it makes for a very interesting dynamic. You're on vacation and there's bars on the doors, and it looks a little unsettling, but yet you look across the street and you see people walking around that are clearly tourists with no care in the world. What I found absolutely striking, and I alluded to this a little bit, were the blue cobblestone streets. If you've ever seen pictures, you know that Old San Juan is locally known for these blue cobblestone streets. They're called adoquines. And I did a little bit of digging because I'm kind of a nerd. When something piques my interest, I want to know a little bit more. And these were actually brought across the Atlantic from England and Europe way back in the 18th and 19th century. And they were not blue. They became blue over time with moisture and with horse and carriages and later cars running over them. All of that is good and fine. Here's my insider tip. These damn things are slippery when wet. If you get caught in the rain, do watch your step. The rain itself was actually wonderful. It was kind of just a fun afternoon with the lovely sprinkling, and it was hot, so it felt good. And I had been having fun with my friends. My friend took me to her version of the best mojito on the island, and honestly, it was pretty damn good. It had real sugar cane in it, and I had a great conversation with the bartender. There was all of this fun, upbeat, cool reggaeton kind of style music going on, and it got me to thinking about what things must have been like around the Super Bowl in Puerto Rico. So I had this fantastic conversation with the bartender about none other than Bad Bunny. And when I tell you their love around this guy, they love them some Bad Bunny. Look, I'm going to be honest. Despite all the bars on the windows and the demonstrations and the really large police presence, and maybe it was because of the police presence, but nonetheless, I felt perfectly safe walking around Old San Juan. you could walk through most of the town in one afternoon. It's pretty small, quaint, a lot to see, a lot of little shops. Well, I didn't have a lot of food. The food I had was nice. We came in late on one night and then got up kind of, mid-morning because of the time change and all the things. But my friend was determined to take me to the restaurant where they boast to be the home of the original piña colada. And so the next day, off we went to have kind of a brunchy lunchy at Barachina. Barachina is the home of the original piña colada, crafted since 1963. Now, the food was like classic Puerto Rican fare, and we had 2 piña coladas. They are delicious. And as someone who does not really like sweet drinks, I can honestly say it was not too sweet. And 2 drinks was enough rum to keep me going for, well, let's just say the rest of the afternoon, or at least until the mojitos with the sugar cane. Old San Juan is a charming town, and would I go back? Absolutely. And I would love to see more of Puerto Rico in general. Specifically, I would love to enjoy more of the nightlife, the dancing, and maybe even watch a sporting event, because I'm telling you, the fervor with which these people enjoy their life is contagious and something I'd love to be able to bottle and bring back home. So, moving right on into reality on the verge. I guess I'm in my summer TV era. Because remember I told you I had aged out of Love Island? Well, I have a confession to make. I still don't get the obsession at all. But somehow, I keep watching. Yep. It got its nails into me and I am hooked. Not in a, I have to watch it as soon as it comes out kind of way, but in a, there really isn't much on TV. I guess Love Island will take up an hour of my day. I don't know. I like the premise. My husband walked in, shook his head in utter disappointment and said, "What are you watching now?" And I explained to him that it was kind of a mix of The Dating Game meets The Bachelor with games included, and America gets to chime in, kind of like American Idol back in the day. He shook his head and walked away. I say this because I don't disagree. I don't know. I think my takeaway so far is that the 20-something-year-olds have a much more casual relationship with physicality and sex than those generations before them. And that might be inaccurate, but that's my takeaway, because I have never seen it so blatantly displayed. And I get that that's what Love Island is about. I understand the premise of the title, but I don't know. It seems to have settled down over the last couple of episodes. And an aside about the whole thing is that the executive producer tragically and unexpectedly passed away, and it was during production. So I can't even imagine what they are having to go through to keep this thing going, because it is on every single day except for Wednesdays. Holy cow. That's a rough one. Okay. Let's move on to 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. I don't know if you're watching or not, but this cast is something very, very different than what I'm used to. And it's just as discombobulated, but in its own fresh and new way. For example, we have Josh, who's 30 years old from the UK, and Katie, 26 from Oregon. Now, before the 90 days means they come to the United States from whatever country of origin they are coming from, and Once they set foot on American soil, they have 90 days to get married or they must return. So Josh comes from the UK to Oregon and they're supposed to be married, but this girl, she's unhinged. She drinks excessively, then she makes out with all sorts of other guys. And if she's not making out, she's talking about how she's being turned down from people who she was asking to make out with. And God only knows how far it goes. And from time to time, she's done so in front of Josh. So my question is, why does he tolerate this? He seems like a good enough guy. He seems relatively successful. He even seems to have come with his own sort of bankroll. And that's a 90-day rarity. But for some reason, at least this far in the season, he's still putting up with her. And let's move on to the last resort. All right, just some quick observation on this one. Sarper and Shekinah. Sarper's not funny. And Shekinah is giving damsel in distress. Sarper suddenly thinks he's a comedian and he has decided to combine his comedy act with exercise. And it's not only terrible exercise, but it's bad comedy. I don't know what this guy is thinking, but TLC is giving him the airtime. And believe it or not, there are quite a few venues that are giving him time for a comedy act. Okay. Do you guys remember Rebecca and Zied? Well, they're on The Last Resort. And I did not like Rebecca back then when she was on 90 Days. But this girl is doing nothing to gain favor with viewers. She is just so not likable. And the funny thing is, I don't think Zied is very likable either, but she is so unlikable and so overbearing that she actually makes him a likable character. I'll keep watching this, but so far, and if I'm being honest, I don't think The Last Resort is going to yield many saved relationships. And I don't think Before the 90 Days is going to yield many marriages that last either. But none of that should be news. If we watch reality, we all know this is the likely outcome. So what's coming and what's out now? Well, June has brought us Next Gen and Below Deck Mediterranean. I have not watched either yet, but I'll probably get off the Love Island track, thank God. Sorry, Love Island. And move on to some of these other offerings as things heat up for us in July. July 9th brings us the milestone season 20 of Real Housewives of Orange County. You know I will be tuning in. And on July 12th, we get another season of Married at First Sight, which is one of my favorite sleeper shows. And for the dance aficionados, July 13th brings us Dancing with the Stars, boasting fan favorites like Summer House's Sierra Miller and Maura Higgins. Remember her? She's the breakout Love Island gal who I personally fell in love with on Traders last summer. It's going to be a good summer. And now it's time for Winos on the Verge, my honest take on where I went, what I had, and whether I'd go back. Well, this week on Winos, I have something a little different for you. I attended the Elton John tribute at Europa Village. The tribute band is headed up by Kenny Metcalf as Elton, and his daughters are his backup singers. What a fantastic evening. First of all, we ended up meeting friends as per usual in the VIP tasting room. We hung out. This time we ordered a huge spread of appetizers because the concert didn't include food. So, of course, we weren't going to have an official dinner. We were going to drink wine and have appetizers. And did we ever? Okay, a few of the notables. The guacamole was delicious. The empanadas were really good. And I loved the steak bites with the shoestring potatoes. Now, this was a really wonderful layout for there were 7 of us having this evening together. And what fun. We had apps, we had a couple of glasses of wine, and then we made our way over to Vienza, to the beautiful garden up there, where I got to tell you guys, the setup was quite elaborate for this Elton John tribute night. It was lights, a beautiful stage. They had decorations, and it was a gorgeous evening. It wasn't too warm, and the concert was starting at 7:30, and it wasn't too chilly. Just perfect for the light sweater I had brought along. And I was excited. So the setup, so you know, is the VIP section in the front included 4 tables. If you were at that table, any of those 4 tables, it was a table for 4. It included a couple of bottles of wine and a charcuterie. The price tag was pretty steep for that offering, so I did not consider that. And then behind that, there were chairs set up, a small section, maybe 3 rows, which was considered the VIP section. And then just a couple of feet behind that was general admission. I was 1 row back in general admission. And honestly, any seat in the garden is beautiful for an event such as this one. It allows for getting up and dancing. And yes, we did dance. We got up and we danced to Daniel, and we hung out and waited in anticipation for Benny and the Jets, because my husband's name is Ben. And everyone was singing along to Crocodile Rock. I have a great video of me and my 2 girlfriends dancing the night away. And there were some people who had big Elton glasses on. There was one lady who had a cape that lit up, and she turned it on once it got dark. That was a hoot. So was it worth it? Well, for sure, it was a lovely date night. We sang, we danced, we kissed, we laughed. We nibbled on great appetizers and sipped on terrific wine. What could be bad about that? The weather cooperated. The music was great. Listen, this guy went on for 2 hours, no intermission, covered a menagerie of Elton's huge catalog. And at no point was I bored. At no point did I want to leave. It was a fantastic evening. And that means that, of course, I would go back, and of course I would recommend it. And from what I understand, there is another evening in the garden with a cover band, an ABBA cover band coming up sometime this summer that folks are pretty excited about. So all in all, I thought it was a terrific evening, and that's it for this week's Winos on the Verge. But I'll be back next Friday, and we'll be talking more life on the verge, and of course, travel on the verge, where I'll take you with me on my 7-day Eastern Caribbean cruise. There'll be more reality on the verge, of course, because, well, I like reality. And I'm really hoping to bring you a fresh new segment of Winos on the Verge, because this girl needs to get outside so she'll have something to report. I really, really have enjoyed today. I hope you have too. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope your summer is giving you time to do the things that bring a smile to your face. And I will be back next time. But until then, I'll be right here. You guessed it, living on the verge. Have a great weekend.